Nirmala ji, the export sector is suffering because of slowdown in major markets. What are the options to mitigate the impact of weak international economies for us today?
See, it has two-sided problem. One, you have to make up for those handicaps that Indian exporters face, whether in logistics, whether it is the cost of electricity, or whether it is any other inherent handicap that they may have in terms of labor or in terms of the place they are located in and so on. So for these inefficiencies because of certain handicaps, it is necessary to give them some kind of a redressal, in the sense give them some incentive, or the RODTEP like scheme which is already on. So that's one thing. But it's also the usual way in which you would say, if a market is difficult, look for newer markets. If a market is difficult, see what you want to do about making yourself attractive for that market. You do road shows, or you spend money in branding yourself, or you appoint such agents who will tell us about the tastes in that and preferences in that market and so on. And looking for another market, you will obviously spend some money and go on road shows, open up avenues there. But today, the typical problem that you face, not just you, meaning Indian exporters, but many face, is the lack of demand in those markets because of recession, which are normally our marketplaces where we send our products, whether it's your textile, whether it is your diamonds, whether it's your gems and jewelry, whether it is your tea, whether it's your basmati rice, and so on. So I'm taking those which are symbolic of India. There are others, components, auto components, electronic parts, which you very well manufacture today. So when the recession has hit these economies, and when I say these economies, not just those in which you're present, but even for the newer markets which you might otherwise aim at, all of them are hit by it. So that's where the problem gets even more compounded, and we'll have to work together with the exporters to see how best we can help it.
Okay. India's trade deficit with China has hit $100 billion in 2022, $100 billion in 2022. Imports keep rising, exports to China are falling. Is this situation acceptable to us? How do we really reverse this trend?
No country would want its exports to languish and imports to balloon with any trading partner. But the issue has two-pronged answers. We should be conscious not to have to consume things which come, overly from only one destination. But that doesn't mean I'm imposing any view. We should also be conscious of buying it from elsewhere if it is necessary at all. And for India's exports, it has to also look at ways in which market can be expanded in that territory or in any other geographical jurisdiction. So it is always a twin game. It's like a pair of scissors. You have to look at both the sides.
What do you make of this growing clamor, especially in some opposition ruled states like Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, to bring back the old pension scheme? In fact, Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Devendra Fadnavis ji, has also spoken about this. He said he'll look into the matter. What is the government's view on this?
See, when I talk about government's view, I don't want to speak as though this government view or that government's view. Who, after all, implemented it for the first time? After the decisions were taken at different layers of officialdom, the political dispensations which brought this in was not just NDA. UPA was actively those who brought it forward. The entire question of introduction of OPS, new pension scheme, was during the Congress's period. They didn't at that time talk about rollback. They didn't at that time talk about any, bringing the old system back or anything of that. So now if without adequate looking into of what it means, are we paying the current generation of pensioners by loading it onto the future generation?
That's right.
And how far, because in government the arguments will quickly come back to you saying, but when government borrows, it's also leaving a burden on the future generation and so on. But that's the argument. Would we all look at what is a reasonable balance? Would we look at what is it that we are leaving for our generations to come? Yes, you will have to have an economy running, you will borrow to a certain extent. But unless we have a complete understanding of this, the fiscal implication, the fiscal health of the state, not just today, for the next decades, to rush to a conclusion may not be.
Right.
And I was glad to hear in one of the book release programs that I attended, Sri Montek Singh Aluwalia talk about it. It's not I'm taking up something which emerged out of a private conversation.
Right.
In a book release, publicly, when asked, he did respond. So it's not as if now we are talking on political lines. We have to talk on Indian economy, its strength, not just Indian economy as Government of India, but every state's economy, and then take a call on it.
That's right. Let's move on to the personal tax front. I think it is one thing that has really wowed everyone, wowed the middle class, your core vote bank also of the BJP. You want, obviously, people to move to the new tax regime. So by when will you then look at phasing out 80C and 80D deductions? Because, that's really the core of investments, healthcare. When will this happen? What is your time frame to sort of move to the new tax regime entirely?
No, I'm not given myself a time frame. I'm more looking at it to make sure every Indian citizen makes his own choice, her choice. It's one thing for me to say I'm bringing in a better system, which is going to be less complicated, in fact, least complicated, which also is going to give you a rate which is going to be reasonable for each one of our levels of income, and make it attractive, therefore, for compliance and also for the rate. I pay less tax there.